Hey, what's going on, folks? It is Rosie here, and the first trailer for Shattered Space is here, so let's dive in. The trailer opens with the Spacefarer's ship discovering a mysterious star station. We hear Andreja tell us that there are no records of there being a star station at this place. There's also another voice that drops a few vague lines throughout this first part of the trailer. Here's everything they say pieced together. I'll never get back home. Trapped. All for nothing. Save Anasko. Restore the Citadel. This is the Serpent's will. Dazra has fallen. Take me home. So a lot to process here. This person has been trapped, which may refer to what's going on with the star station. They also mention someone named Anasko and the Citadel, which is perhaps the structure we see here. And apparently Dazra has fallen. This is likely the main premise of this expansion. What happens to Dazra? What remains of House Va'ruun? Why did Jarek choose to seclude his people from the rest of space? Those are the questions that will drive this DLC. Let's start with Anasko and this Citadel. I was able to find a page on Starfield Wiki called Starfield Embassy Artifact Info Kiosk. Its contents contain information about the artwork in House Va'ruun's embassy, but I can't actually find this supposed kiosk anywhere in the game. So I assume that this is unused content that one of the Wiki's contributors got from the game files. And there's an entry in here that mentions Anasko. Displayed here are works created by Va'ruun artisans, personally selected by our magnanimous leader Anasko Va'ruun to exhibit one of the many facets of Va'ruun culture. So this is a member of the Va'ruun bloodline, and they're referred to as the leader. Hence, Anasko appears to be the current monarch of House Va'ruun. This kiosk also mentions a location called the Scaled Citadel, which is probably the Citadel that the voice was referring to. We should also talk about this strange organic material in the star station. This blobby mass of some sort of life form is radiating an ominous blue glow, and it throbs, almost as if it's beating like a heart, which I believe is the idea here. Later in the trailer, another voice says, "Can you feel its embrace encircling your heart, constricting until there is no more you, only us?" So, I think this organism is supposed to physically and perhaps symbolically resemble a heart, and perhaps the blue glow is the blood. So here's what I'm thinking about the story so far. My guess is the title, Shattered Space, is more literal than I've previously thought. I think that whatever's happening on Va'ruun Kai is causing tears in the fabric of space, and this star station has been teleported from one place to another. Perhaps it was in orbit around Va'ruun Kai or one of its moons, and one of these spatial rifts, if you will, took it to where it is now, where we are going to discover it. Now let's dive further into this blue glow. It seems to spread to people and creatures and possess them like it's an infection. So this may be a zombie/hive mind kind of deal. There's also what appears to be a contrasting red glow. So perhaps these are two competing entities or competing forces, if you will. It's not clear if these glows are scientific or supernatural in nature, but I'm just going to call them the blue and red magics. We see these magics on full display in this image of what I presume is the Citadel. The way they sculpt the area around it makes it seem broken in a way. So maybe to restore the Citadel, we're going to have to repair the damage somehow. Another thing that I'll point out about this image is that it gives off a very Skyrim-y vibe. The structure and the landscape both remind me of the more gothic-looking places in Skyrim, like the Solcairn, and there's an Aurora. To top that off, the mystery woman that we're going to discuss in a bit has a Nordic-sounding accent. For those that aren't aware, there are very strong connections between House Va'ruun and Elder Scrolls lore. The strongest piece of evidence for this is that there's a lot of proper nouns pertaining to House Va'ruun that have Elnifex roots, which is an ancient language in the Elder Scrolls universe. An example of this is the first two leaders, Junon and Jarek Va'ruun. Many fans have already done some math with the history and pointed out that they both must have been pretty young when they rose to the throne. And in Elnifex, G and Ja both mean bachelor, and that's just one example. Another theory that's been floating around the community that I think could be relevant here is that the Great Serpent is actually two snakes. Perhaps these blue and red magics are extensions of these two snakes and they're spilling out into the world because their Ouroboros is out of balance or broken. Maybe House Va'ruun's experiments with Gravtech somehow forced them to stop eating each other, so they just started to eat the world around them. Given the ties to Elder Scrolls lore, there are two characters that would make a lot of sense as the basis for these two snakes, Shor and Alduin. Shor is commonly associated with creation, and likewise Alduin is thought of as anti-creation. There is a shot in here of a creepy looking bird flying through the red magic, and the whole thing does give me a very Alduin vibe. Also, the prediction I made about the Starstation is a lot like what the Tongues did to Alduin. They cast him adrift in time, and I think the Starstation was cast adrift in space. So I'm very excited to see how these connections to Elder Scrolls lore are expanded upon in Shattered Space. I definitely want to further explore this subject in future videos, I just need to play Shattered Space first. Midway through the trailer, a woman's voice says, "Hold very still, and choose your words carefully. They will determine how long you live. You trespass in the home of House Varun. Your fate will be decided by the Great Serpent." So this planet does seem to be Varunkai. This woman holding a jawbone appears a few times, and my guess is that it's her voice we're hearing. She's probably going to be an important character for this expansion. Maybe she's the leader of whatever remnants of civilization live on Varunkai. We should also talk about this mysterious machine. It really reminds me of the prototype grav drive on Earth, which is what destroyed Earth's magnetosphere. So I'm thinking that this machine is what quote-unquote shattered space. Perhaps House Varun was trying to use gravtech to artificially open a gate for the Great Serpent to return and ended up ripping the fabric of space apart. And now these magics are spilling out through the rifts they've created. There is a shot in here of what looks like an artificial artifact temple that could be part of this machine. Maybe this is the key to opening these rifts in space, and maybe it's also the key to repairing the damage. I think a good way to wrap up here is to do a synopsis of what I'm predicting for the plot. Sometime before the start of this expansion, House Varun attempted to use gravtech to facilitate the Great Serpent's return. This had unexpected consequences. They ended up damaging the fabric of space, and now these mysterious blue and red magics are pouring through the breaches. Also, a Starstation was sucked into one of these rifts and ended up somewhere in the settled systems. This is where the Spacefarer is going to enter the picture. Constellation will receive some odd readings through the eye, and the Spacefarer will be sent to investigate them. This is where we'll discover the Starstation and explore its interior. This biological mass will somehow send us backwards through the rift to Varunkai. Once there, this mystery woman will explain everything that has happened, and we'll need to help her repair the damage to the fabric of space. This will involve restoring the Citadel and fighting the hosts of these strange magics. Thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and share. That's all extremely helpful to the channel. I'll see you in Shattered Space.